Hello, everyone. We are now live in Tact Radio. This is Jordan Arell, your host. And hold on, I invited a friend of mine who wants to talk with me. So I'm going to resend this invitation to him. Give me one moment. And yeah, feel free to call in. This is an open discussion, as I said. So anyways, how y'all doing? I'm going to also post this link invite in the chat. So I think that's only going to YouTube. For some reason, it's not posting to Facebook, but whatever. I don't know what the deal with Facebook is, man. I don't know. Yeah, Intactivism. We are here to talk about Intactivism, as always. Oh, I can do full screen mode. I don't know if they had that before. That's cool. Well, then I can't see the chat now. If they had like a full screen where I could also see the chat at the same time, that would be really fucking useful. Restream, what are you doing? So, Intactivism is the name of the game. And today I'm starting a new segment called Intact News. I'm not actually. Actually, I am. I just don't really gather any news. I do have one piece of news. There's a intersex activist in. Let me make sure I get this all right. There's an intersex activist in South America. Specifically, there's an intersex activist in Venezuela who is having problems due to a surgery he had performed on him to remove parts of his genitals when he was a child, and he is now facing potentially life-threatening or life-debilitating. He's basically going to be like permanently severely disabled and not able to move if he doesn't get this hormone therapy that he needs, which was caused by unnecessary surgeries on his genitals as a child. So I will, I wonder if I can repost it. Well, they already raised the money they want, actually, so I'm not sure. I need to share the GoFundMe, but there was a GoFundMe and it succeeded. They raised $1,500, which is what they needed for the medications. This was shared with me by Eliana Rubashkin, who is an intersex activist who was at the last meeting of the Bodyguards, an international coalition with a goal of abandoning sexual mutilation around the globe. And Eliana spoke at this meeting. If you go to the Intact Community Facebook page, you can also, or the Bodyguards YouTube channel, you can also look at Eliana speaking, and they talk about their experience as an intersex person and important issues surrounding that. So we have a person here who has joined. I think I have to allow them in. Hey there.
Hello, that was unexpected. I thought I was going to be watching you guys chat.
Oh, yeah. No, you joined the Restream chat. You can watch on Facebook or on YouTube if you just want to watch. But if you click the join the video, then you're on the video. So do you want me to kick you back out?
Well, I'm a bit nervous right now. I'm sorry I interrupted by just joining, and maybe until more people come, maybe you could kick me back out.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can do that. And you can, I think you can just message me if you want to come back on too, or I don't know, actually, you can probably do that somehow. But
fantastic.
All right. So anyways, yeah, no, that's fine. You can join anytime. This is an open discussion. So that's kind of the whole point of this, actually. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit here and whine about nobody joining. But right now, yeah, I was just giving an update. Actually, Intact News is where I tell you the news, what's happening in Intactivism. And yeah, so I was just giving you an update on this intersex thing that's happening. And that's about all I have to say about it, actually. Intersex children face genital mutilation at one of the highest rates of anyone in the world, I think, or the highest rate, most likely. I don't know what the rate is exactly. I really need to inform myself more on intersex. I'm thinking about having Eliana or other intersex people on here to host shows, because right now I'm thinking like I should study intersex more so I can speak to it, and I do think I should. But I'm also experiencing a lot of burnout, as I think is a perpetual problem for almost everyone in the intactivist movement, because it's just such a horrible and traumatic issue to confront every day. And going and like studying about all the horrors of intersex mutilation and learning about that over the course of any amount of time is just not something I can cope with at the moment. I know it's bad, and I know, I'll speak up against it whenever I can, and I want to help bring those people on this platform because I think they're the ones who can best speak to their experience of what it's like to be an intersex person. So, anyways, this is Intact Radio. Thank you all for joining, and please join the discussion. There should be a link to join the discussion in the description of this on both YouTube and Facebook. And hold on, I'm going to send it also the link in the chat. So if you click on the link that I just posted in the chat, you can also join to this call. And yeah, that's what we're doing here. So please, if you're interested, come and join. Come with us and drink some wine. I can see Murat laughing. He's off screen right now, but he was the conversation, waiting till more people join here. So if you want to join this discussion, then join the discussion by clicking the link to join the discussion, and I will talk with you about the discussion, which is ending non-consensual genital cutting. Is the discussion we are having. So feel free to join if you would like to join. I'm thinking maybe I should go on Reddit. I was going to do Reddit, but I thought, no, we'll have plenty of people. But if you do Reddit, you generally get a good showing. A lot of people from Reddit will come to these things. So, but if you're not on Reddit, if you're just watching this, for example, right now, then feel free to join the discussion and click on that link, and we can talk about intactivism here. I'm going to go to Reddit and post this there. I should have done this earlier because then people get a heads up about it. Intactivism is the biggest one. Come on. Live intactivist discussion now. Maybe I should give them a YouTube link too, in case they want to watch and not join. That said, he can join. Okay, cool. I will bring you on then. Uh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. How do you pronounce your name?
Murat.
Murat? Okay.
Yeah. I'm pleasantly surprised that this is happening right now because I receive notifications from, from your page or YouTube or Facebook at like 4 a.m. while I'm already sleeping. So in the morning, it's like, yeah, this conversation has already happened, but too bad for you, kind of thing. So I was happy that it was at an earlier hour in the United States.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Where are you joining from?
I'm in Paris.
Okay.
Yeah, I am living in Paris. It's been 5 years, and I am originally from Turkey.
And you're already what?
Originally from Turkey.
Oh, you're originally from Turkey. Okay.
Yes. And I have been watching pretty much everything you guys have been doing, but the shows are quite long. So I cannot say I have seen everything so far.
Well, that's not a problem. I think we generally say a lot of the same things kind of over and over.
Yeah,
um, you know, it's it's basically number one, don't cut the genitals off of children. It's like the main message. Second of all, for those who are experiencing the trauma of that, we're trying to either treat that with foreskin restoration or develop foreskin regeneration as a treatment, or also do trauma work. Um,
yeah,
so those are the things that we do to help people who are suffering from that. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of other subtopics, but that's kind of the main. It's kind of the main point.
yeah,
It's like pretty simple. So
yeah, yeah. I
um,
mean, I have been personally restoring for 2 years now, and lately I have kind of lost uh, um, a big portion of my motivation to restore, and in order to deal with the trauma itself, for I have, I mean, I can honestly say that I have been dealing with this stress lately.
mhm.
So, but I mean, I by obsessively consuming everything online and reading books and posts about things that that things that show me that people are going through the same thing pretty much has been a motivator for me. I had the chance to talk to one or two friends that I met on Facebook pages, and right now I mean, I restarted tugging. So yeah, that's where I am right now, and I'm kind of nervous. So let's drink, shall we?
That's okay. It's normal. Um, yeah. How long did you say you've been restoring for?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
I would dare saying CI3, but you know, yeah, I mean the level CI level.
Hmm.
Mm.
So it's gone from what?
One,
1, 2, 3. Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of weird information since it's not medically researched or anything. It's a lot of information about men jumping from CI2 to CI7 in 8 months and stuff. So you kind of like look down and feel disheartened, but I don't feel like I have a lot of choice here.
Right. Yeah. It's I know how you feel exactly. I've been restoring for 7.5 years.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Or no, 8 years. 7.5. 7.5. And went from CI, what is it? CI 3 to 4, I think. So
Mhm.
very, very slow.
Do you
Um,
are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying you are at that level, or you started from CI 3 or 4?
yeah, I went from CI 3 to CI 4. So only up
Ah, okay,
one.
okay, 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 okay.
Very, very slow. Um, and yeah, I know some are very, very fast that they restore completely within a matter of a year or two. For some men, it takes, like me, it takes more like 30 years. So it's
Yep.
crazy how, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to cope. I think it makes the trauma of it a lot worse because it's like, um, it's just so, it feels so hopeless and you're doing everything you can, but it's still not really changing it
Yeah.
the
So,
fastest.
I can ask you. I think you would be the right person to ask this question. If, like, what's the what's what because like Ottavio has written this in the chat, and it's actually funny. And I would I would like to know at what level Foragin is. Is Foragin still, I don't know, working on it, or is Foraging canceled? What's happening?
No, it's still going. Yeah, it's I think the reason uh there's a lot of pessimism about it is because um yeah, people at Foragin kind of um underestimated how long it would take.
Mm,
And there were statements early on. I remember when I first joined that I was seeing, like it said, like, oh yeah, if we raise $100,000, then we can do human clinical trials and have it all ready in like a couple years or something like that. And
mm,
then in 2016, the estimate we gave was that we could do it by 2020. I think it was something like that, or 2016 or 2017, and even 2018, which was uh, I don't know if that was totally not true. I think the part of the problem is it's just we don't have the funding to do the research. The research, if we could actually fund it and do all the research we need to, it would be much faster. Um, but yeah, also just the science does take time to do, especially with all the things we have to coordinate. We're working with like a university right now to do the animal trials actually. So the animal trials are now happening, or they're in the phases of starting, and that'll take a couple years still. So then after that, I believe the next phase is human clinical trials after animal testing is done. Provided that, again, it's also, we're actually not giving any estimates of time at this point officially because it's just really hard to know for sure if we're going to run into some scientific obstacle that we don't foresee, or if we're still going to have funding challenges. Um, and so yeah, it's really hard to predict it at this point, but it's, I think will happen eventually. It's just a question of when. And so, um, yeah, I don't know if that's going to be within, I think the absolute soonest would be like 5 years would be my guess. Again, that's just my guess, would be the absolute soonest. Um, but I'm also uh, pessimist realist sometimes, and I'm like, it could take 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. I don't I
okay.
don't I don't really know. That's just me being pessimistic. Again, no one else at Foragin has said that, but I think
Mm,
just being totally realistic, it's, maybe the nerves won't regenerate the way that we think they will, and that'll take many more years of research. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't think I don't think nerves similar to the foreskin have ever been regenerated before. I know they haven't because there aren't any other nerves like that anywhere on the body. so, so we definitely haven't regenerated anything that's exactly similar to it. So there could be
Yeah.
unique challenges. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well,
hard to.
I don't think circumcision ritual itself is going to end before Foraging, reaches to the point that it works. So I think Foraging has time. So, I mean, pessimistic, I would go 100 years to be honest. I don't know. I don't think it's going to take that long for at least the states to end circumcision,
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
humble opinion.
I don't think so either. I think people underestimate where intactivism is right now. I think that it's getting close to the point where it'll start accelerating. I mean, if you look at something like gay rights, the movement in the United States in the 80s or the 90s, like most people thought being gay was like really bad. They just were very against it and said like this is a terrible thing, and it was okay to discriminate against gay people, and there was no one anywhere really saying that gay marriage should be legal, except maybe gay people. But yeah, like if you were gay, then you just hid it and didn't let anyone know because you'd face total discrimination. And then now it's 30 years later, and it's pretty much universally the
Yeah,
exact opposite. Like gay
yeah,
marriage is legal, and no one is saying that being gay is bad anymore. Like that's unacceptable for anyone to say at all. So it's totally changed, and I think in intactivism we're getting close to that point. I don't know if it'll be 10 or 20 years or what, but I think in the United States at least it'll push through around that time, and probably in other developed nations too. Um, Obviously, in Islamic countries and Jewish majority countries, it'll be a lot more difficult. Um,
yeah,
but I think yeah, in terms of at least um, those countries, it'll be very soon. So
yeah. I think it was Carter who said in one of these meetings, I will say, that it can be from time to time frustrating for intactivists to be so like dismissed, never under the radar and everything, while canceling someone for saying or not saying something at the right time is like a matter of a second in these days. And here we are, two people talking about this issue, and the interactivist pages are like, I think it's only uh, Your Whole Baby and Bloodstained Man who has like tens of thousands of followers. I mean, not that followers is the main issue here, you know, maybe quality and not quantity, and
mhm.
but at the same time, the like not being heard, being dismissed is quite particular in this issue, and I think at a certain point it matters. What matters is to have more people who are rather engaging, as Ryan said in his book. Like we should focus on the people who are like the allies or potential allies. I can't quite remember the term right now,
Mhm.
and like the people who are really ready to engage in this stuff and would matter more. But again, it is personally it's quite shocking to me how it's going this slow.
Mhm.
The whole development of allies and people who are engaging in this. like there should have been like hashtags flying around or like profile picture frames on everyone's pages. I'm not saying it's the same thing as the Me Too movement or Black Lives Matter, obviously, uh, but I cannot. I'm having a hard time how people see this as a rather trivial issue. I guess we should have died. I don't know. I guess there should be more reports of children dying in the hospitals because of this ritual. So,
Mm.
I mean, maybe I'm saying something wrong, and I apologize if I'm saying something wrong. From where uh, from my point, I do not necessarily have the have all the gadgets and tools to refer to delicate topics in general. So I might be saying things in the wrong way, but I don't mean it, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think everything you've said makes sense to me. It, there are delicate issues around it, but I don't think it's by any means any less important of an issue than Me Too or Black Lives Matter or issues like that. Um, I mean, if you look at like circumcision grief subreddit, I've noticed that a lot of the men on there are really really in a lot of pain and grieving and just having really a serious trauma to the point where they're even suicidal or they even don't want to be alive. And so I think it's very important to bring awareness to this issue and how serious it actually is, that it can deteriorate your quality of life to the point where life isn't actually worth living anymore, and that the pain is that severe for a lot of people. So yeah, I think that's not going too far at all. And I will say, I have seen. I think Your Whole Baby has profile frames that you can put on your
Yeah.
picture that says "Boys are born perfect too," and I have seen a number of those, a few thousand at least, which is definitely not. I mean, there's millions of people who have done like the Me Too or those other ones, um, but it's yeah, you have to keep in mind it's more about how fast it's growing than it is, I think, about how big it is right now. Because, a few decades ago, there were only a few dozen people, and now there's, I don't know, I assume there are tens of thousands at least of people who really care about this issue. So, that's a pretty big difference in numbers. And if we continue growing at that rate, then in a few more decades, it would be in the millions. But yeah, uh, it's definitely a little discouraging just to see that it's not as well known as any of those other issues yet. But I definitely don't think there's anything like that will stop it, because it's children have just as much oppression and pain as any other group of people does. It's not like they're not being harmed very seriously in this way. So I think it's just a matter of society kind of catching up to what's actually happening. So hopefully we'll keep on spreading the awareness, and eventually it will be a society-wide thing, but just not there quite
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not.
I think it's probably different in Paris too, because or France. Sorry, I don't know if you said Paris, but France.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Paris.
Paris, okay.
Mm.
Because I know there are groups who are doing, Droit au Corps is a group in France who is doing advocacy work around this. But I don't think there's as many as there are in the United States. You know, there's a bunch.
No.
Your Whole Baby and Bloodstained Men being the two biggest, and Intact America. But those three probably being the biggest here.
Yeah, there's not much need here either, to be honest. Like it should be like you should be a part of a religious group necessarily, and you should be unhappy about what has been done to you. And when you're in a, how can I say that? It's not ghetto. It is like a diaspora in a country. You have the tendency to clutch on your beliefs and your culture even more than the original country. Like any Turkish diaspora anywhere around in the world would be more interested in what's happening in Turkey and what is it that defines you as a Turkish person would be different than what's going on in Turkey, obviously. And so people question less the issues like this in especially in Europe, where here like it's not a practice that is being done in most of the cases, unless you know back in the day in the 80s, a doctor what for a man who had phimosis, the doctor thought the only solution would be circumcision. Unless cases like that, being a part of the French community and coming from a French family, you would not be circumcised. So here, yeah, it's not a thing at all. And in Turkey, either there's an awareness growing very slowly, like baby steps, but people aren't necessarily questioning this. And here it's kind of normal. Like in Europe, I find it quite normal to not question circumcision because why would a woman question, like think about not having a foreskin, for example? It would never, like in countries where female FGM is not practiced, people wouldn't sit down and think about that. So that is the exact same case here. Like people don't think about it. And when I talk to my friends about how I'm struggling with being mutilated as a child, they do not. They're like, "Ah, you're actually right." That is the moment that the first time they think about, like, in the world somewhere people are being circumcised. Like it's not a part of their 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 ideas. Like they don't think about that in general. So yeah, organizations in general are not active necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's one of the. I mean, we kind of have the same issue here too, actually. Even though it's so widespread here, most people haven't really heard from any men often that they've been unhappy being circumcised, actually. So, and here when you do tell people it, often there's a very mix of responses. Some people are very defensive because they do either have chosen circumcision for their sons, or because they are themselves circumcised or their partner is circumcised, and they don't want to think about the fact that it could be mutilation and that it could be harmful. And so when they when you say that to them, it's very they have a very bad reaction and don't kind of be like, oh yeah, you're right, but they're like, no, definitely that's impossible, and don't even want to hear it or that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it also reminds me a lot of the gay rights movement, actually, which we were just talking about. How it used to be that no one knew anyone who was gay. Like you didn't know anyone who was gay if you were just a few decades ago. You didn't have any family members. You didn't know any of your friends who were gay. It's not because they weren't gay. It's because they didn't tell anybody about it because there was too much stigma attached, and they knew that they would be attacked for it, and there was just such a hostile environment. And I think to some degree, it's the same thing here, where there are a lot of men who are unhappy being circumcised, at least 10%. I mean, I know surveys from a few decades ago showed 10%. I'm sure it's higher now. But, that means out of every 10 men, which is quite a lot. Actually, that's even more than are gay. So,
Yeah.
so I don't think it's that it doesn't affect people. I think that people who it affects just don't talk about it very much. So it's really partly, having conversations like this and getting people to talk about it and let others know about it. that's
Mm.
one of the keys to making people more aware of it. So
Personally, when I talk to people about this, it's I do not want to go into too much detail. It's like talking about sex to a child. Like you don't want to give too much information unless it is asked. So I start with so I am against circumcision personally, and like I don't jump directly into like all the the lost nerves or PTSD and everything. But I want to test their like investment on the topic, whether they want to talk about that, because somehow still inside I feel like it is. I hate calling it that because it really sounds like very similar to the incel community, but I can I kind of don't want to like it feels like the red pill, and I personally, as I know how much I'm suffering from that, I kind of feel awkwardly, I kind of feel responsible about like letting people know that, you know, waking them up about this. It's I mean it sounds weird. I'm not saying that I am, you know, I don't mean to sound like a prophet or something, but like letting someone know about this is like, why did you tell me that? I was living my life very happily. It was Carter again who said, like, was it better when I didn't know about this? Was it like if it was ignorance bliss? He never said that, but it does feel like that from time to time. But at the same time, it is not my it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility to. I am not the one who should feel bad about like letting people know what had been done to them or what is being done to children worldwide right now. Um, it is, the society's responsibility. So I do feel it's kind of like a calming moment for me to feel more uh, liberated about talking about this topic to people who had never brought this up in their lives. So,
yeah, I something that uh, I used to feel very much the same way. Um, like I didn't talk about this to anybody for at least 5 years or so because I didn't want to make anyone else as upset about it as I was. And besides, I was just so traumatized that it was almost impossible for me to talk about it because it was just so painful and and triggering for me. But something that Jessica Rigdon said on my podcast for Foragen actually that I thought was really insightful was, it never you have to think, is it going to hurt the person more, or would it hurt the child potentially more who they would end up circumcising? And obviously it's going to hurt the child way more than it's going to hurt this person. So you know, you have to think about that, and it's like it's a horrible thing to have to do, but at the same time it's much worse for it to keep continuing on if that person is potentially gonna, you know, do it to their child because they think it's okay. So but I think you're right though, that if you kind of start slowly and aren't too aggressive with it, and just, you know, uh, start out as gently as possible and kind of see where they are with it, then they're more likely to be a lot more open to it. Because I've, you know, made the mistake of just like unloading everything about it to someone, and then they're just dead silent, and like they just like don't say anything to me like ever again.
Yeah, we didn't sign up for this.
Okay. No. Nope. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good good thing to do.
Baby
Yeah.
steps.
People they do get defensive and just like angry and whatever, especially when you're aggressive about it. So I like starting with Foragen actually and saying like, oh yeah, well I actually work at this company called Foragen who's trying to regenerate the foreskin and bring back what's lost due to circumcision, because that kind of defuses the bomb a little bit, because it's like to be like, oh yeah, actually, you know, we're working to bring it back, so it's not so negative. It's like a positive, like, yeah, we might actually be able to make your penis function even better and be more pleasurable than it is if you're affected by it, and people are a little more open to it. So it's kind of funny and interesting rather than like horrible and depressing. So
do you know how much pain the babies feel? At the center, maybe it's a better point to start. Like, and did you know burn victims can be saved with this new technology that is called like there's a company called Origin, and like kind of bring the topic from there to like, you know, if you lost an eye, they can bring it back perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The
And
possibilities
then you know
are
what?
endless.
Foreskin slowly bring the topic to the source.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it is the one argument for it is like it's the only thing that we can regenerate a bunch of and you know, test it out, because nobody's missing a bunch of any other organ really. You know, there aren't that many people who are missing hands or eyeballs or whatever, but there are a lot of people who are missing their foreskins. So
yeah, the percentage is not like equal at all.
Yeah. So that's the place to start. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that white wine?
Yes. Yes, and rather cheap one, but delicious.
Is there a preference of wine that's more common in France? Types of wine?
Well, I mean, Bordeaux is huge, obviously, and well, it's their thing really. Like, you don't want to have fast food here, but they do provide cheap and delicious wine. So it's kind of lucky, because I know in North America it's not necessarily that cheap in comparison to here. Like like good wine is quite affordable, but I mean I'm not a rich person, so I wouldn't know what really expensive wine tastes like. I didn't have a chance to like befriend those rich people in general. But
I've heard that in blind tests of when they wine, people actually rate cheaper wines as better, even if they're like a wine snob.
okay,
They still,
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. So you're not missing out, I guess.
Was it not a game like Blind Test? Do you know if the name is Blind Test? So there's this game like that you start playing a song and the players should guess what song it is from the very first seconds of the song,
Hmm.
like the title and the artist. It's like a game. It's a thing here. I didn't know. I learned, and they call it blind test. I mean, they call
Yeah.
it they.
I haven't heard of that, but that sounds fun.
It is fun. It is fun. I did try it with my friends. So it's a lot of fun.
Hmm. Blind test. I'll have to start that
Yeah,
trend here
yeah, yeah,
because I haven't
yeah.
heard it
You should
before.
like. Yeah, I mean, it was. Remember the fun like
The what?
interactivist conversation that you started like
Yes.
with the eight like mm, all stars of all
Yes.
all this cause. So it could be a fun thing.
Absolutely. I'll bring that into the next one for sure.
Yeah, yeah. You would add Ron's song just for fun. Ron Lowe's song.
I want to say Mahler Cougar is said good evening in the chat. Mahler Cougar, I'm probably not going to be here for that much longer because I got to go do other things. But if you want to join the chat, you can still join it for the next, I don't know, 15 minutes or so.
Mm.
Everyone is welcome to join these. Yeah, fun and interactivism is a good thing.
Yeah.
It just gets too depressing sometimes. So,
Can I ask you how long have you been trying to Sorry.
how long have you been what?
How long have you been like working on the trauma, if
Mm.
you call it trauma for yourself too?
I started in at the beginning of 2016. I took a class called Healing from Trauma. Oh, hold on. One person said, how can I join the chat? I'm going to post a link. Oops. Yeah, join the discussion. It should be there, but it should also be in the description on Facebook. I don't know if my comments are actually going through. I don't think they are on Facebook. But if you click the join the discussion thing on Facebook, it should be in the description of this video. So let me know if you can't find that. Anyways, yeah, so I started about, yeah, they're not going. Oh, that's Carter, who said, how do I join? Yeah, Carter, if you click on, oh, is it not showing up? Dang, it's not showing up. Okay, Carter, I'm reposting the link on Facebook. That's annoying. It's because I created a new thing. So Carter, there should now be a link on Facebook that I just posted in the comments of this video on Facebook. It wasn't in the description because
get on right away. I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
on
Carter,
real quick. But
click on,
I'll be right back. Yeah.
Oh, is it not showing? Dang, it's not showing up. Okay, Carter, I'm reposting the link.
Carter, mute your thing before I let you back on because you're echoing. Or put headphones
put something on.
Because otherwise I'm hearing myself and it's really annoying. I hate my I hate my own voice. Yeah, I'll give it a minute.
That explains the long pauses during the videos. Huh.
So yeah, I've been doing trauma work on and off for about 4 years now, to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm back.
Hey,
Is it still echoing pretty bad, or are we all good?
I'm not hearing anything now.
Gotcha. Cool. Hey, nice to meet you. Rod? Is that how you say it, or I butchered that? So,
No, it's Murat. Thank you.
okay,
And,
nice. Cool. I just
yeah.
was listening in for a minute on Facebook. Thought you guys were having an interesting conversation. Jordan, sipping some wine. I like it.
We all are, except you.
Oh, okay. Is this a wine session here?
Yeah, I don't know. What
But I
you're
heard
doing.
having some fun in Intactivism or in these types of chats. I like it. They're usually pretty morbid. So
That's what it's all about. Oh yeah, it gets a little dark.
Yeah.
So I myself am trying to
I was
branch out.
having this experience the other day. I'm definitely guilty of making it morbid very quickly. And I was speaking with this physician that John actually got me in touch with. And we had a very interesting conversation. It was supposed to be a podcast, but I don't really think he thought that the content that I was sharing maybe was appropriate for this podcast. So we never actually did it. But yeah, I'm looking to definitely be more charismatic and kind of like a charming individual, at least when I'm presenting on Intactivist related things, because I've noticed a lot of people are not really drawn in to the conversations that I'm having because they're pretty dark. Like I'm looking to touch on the most difficult components of the conversation, the anatomical loss, the suffering to the child, things like that. Because that's what matters to me, right? That's why we're in this. That's why we're here speaking about this. That's why we care. So it would logically make sense in your mind that that's what you should touch on. But what I've found is that if you introduce the concept and the topic like that, people don't want to understand that and hear that and think through that because it's a very perverse, wicked type of situation that's vile. It's a very vile, uncomfortable thought that people don't want to have. They'd rather ignore it. I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong, but that seems to be kind of the natural instinct when you're told about this topic. So even though I want to present it that way, and I think it should be presented that way, that we're going to have to crack this code somehow. And I think that going directly into the intensive conversations is not the way to do that with the average person.
For sure. We were talking about gay rights a little bit ago, and I also see a parallel in this. When gay rights really started to succeed, the message was like, love is love, right? It's not like we should be able to butt fuck whoever we want. Fuck you.
Right, yeah.
Fuck you. We can fuck your religion. Fuck you. Fuck.
Yeah.
It was like, love is love, man. This is just
That
love.
is true.
We just love each other, and we want to express that love.
Yeah.
And legally bind that love. And so
Yeah.
we should be able to love.
I wonder
love.
what the emotions were behind the scenes, though, right? Because the reality is, and I think it's unfortunate that this is the case, but there's genuine animosity and hatred and disgust and all these very serious negative emotions that I feel and a lot of other men feel. But there's not really a place for that in the average civil discourse on this. But I want there to be, but there just isn't. And you can't really be diplomatic when you're conversing with people in that manner. And making these types of allegations and things like that. So I'm curious. I actually wonder more if there were these feelings within kind of the gay rights community, if behind the scenes, right, they were really upset and angry, because I think they got completely fucked. I mean, the way they're being treated and things like that, I mean, that's totally unacceptable. And I would be fucking angry as shit. But the way that they approached it, was I think they came to the conclusion the only way they can move forward on this is through diplomacy and being gentle about it and helping educate people that being gay is not a crime or a satanic thing. But I also think that it's very valid to feel extremely angry about that situation because it's very unfair.
For sure. One of the discussions that Brendan had that I really liked with John is like we need to have both like an internal and an external thing where like we are
Mm.
able to internally communicate with each other and like be there for like
Yeah.
like have trauma work that you do where you can express that stuff and have those conversations. But then you can also like figure out like, okay, how do we actually talk to people about this to convince them in a way that's effective? Because that's a totally different thing.
Right.
And I think Gay Rights is a great model for that because they have been pretty successful in both creating internal services for themselves and
I
then
think
also projecting the message and manipulating doing advocacy or political work.
yeah. No, I hear you. I think there is something important to touch on. I don't want to dominate this conversation, but moving towards the goal for gay rights, it was advantageous towards the individuals who were trying to achieve this, right? There was some serious human rights concerns here, obviously, and their life improved significantly when the situation from a legislative level evolved, and from a societal perspective on this issue evolved, and the tolerance and the not maybe tolerance, the acceptance that this is a totally normal. There aren't these heinous consequences to being gay. But what is the solution for us? Like, what is the win scenario for us? It's actually for the men that have been circumcised and now identify as being harmed by it. Even if we change everything legislatively, even if the societal thought process around this completely evolves, I'm really still in the same situation, although it's certainly improved in some ways. The physical anatomical loss is still present, and that's really what burdens me. And so I think that there is a huge difference in other types of activism and activism where you've been physically, for an issue that you have permanent physical loss from. Although I could be wrong on that, and there could be more similar. There certainly are similarities. I think that is a major difference, though, between activism that is for violent acts where somebody's been permanently maimed and wounded, and a type of activism where there is actually a solution that individuals can move toward. There's a real solution for the problem that actually achieves. It solves the issue, right? The issue for me won't be solved when things have changed legislatively and society thinks of this much differently. I'm still in a very, very similar boat that I was in before. So this isn't really, the movement right now isn't really men's rights focused, which is fine. And I'm not saying necessarily it has to be. It's more children. Intactivists are more centered around the rights of the child than the rights of the man who's been circumcised. So I'm definitely taking a much different approach, where I'm looking to represent the men that have been impacted by this and create space for the men that do feel this animosity and these very negative emotions, and want to do activism for themselves and for the fellow men that have been impacted by this, including children, but also men.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask is how to actually solve it for the men affected by it. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is, someone like African Americans who were extremely harmed by slavery in a lot of ways, physically, actually too, but even more so mentally and emotionally, and their whole entire lives were basically ripped apart, and they had no money, and were in a pretty dire situation in a lot of ways, and so they had to have some kind of way out of that, and that ended up being multiple hundreds of years, and they still are on, doing way worse than white people are in a lot of ways, which is why they're now seeking reparations through, and solutions and affirmative action through sort of this social justice approach, which you've mentioned before. So I think that is probably the right approach in terms of that. It's interesting because it is very different than sort of this more positive approach that we just mentioned before. I think social justice is pretty adversarial, or it's kind of trying to dismantle the systems of power rather than trying to promote like some positive message. But I don't think they're necessarily. It doesn't mean they're opposed. It just means that they're two different aspects of it. So yeah, and I do think there are. I mean, I think Foragen is an obvious solution, or sorry, not Foragen, but foreskin regeneration, of which Foragen is the only current example. Is the prime, is like, it's actually not asking very much at all to say that we should be spending at least a few $1 million on bringing the solution to the tens of thousands at least men who are extremely severely affected by this.
Right. Well, our biggest hurdle right now is, as you know, as we all know, is getting men to publicly open up about this and speak from a position of vulnerability and say, hey, look, this really, impacted me. This cost me a lot. If you feel that way, and there's a lot of men that are behind the scenes right now that suffer intensely, this issue can cause very intense suffering. I would know because I've suffered intensely because of this, more than any other thing that's happening in my life. This is the greatest pain that I've ever known, like 1,000 times over. Other men, I'm not saying all that are certainly it's the vast minority that feel this way, have a similar emotional reaction to having an involuntary penile mod as an infant that excised, multiple specialized structures from their body. That's like viscerally, it makes me suffer in a very visceral way. That needs to be communicated properly to these nodes of power, like you said here, and effectively. And we need more men on the front lines here speaking out about this. I mean, I feel like I can count on my two hands the amount of men I've heard that have said, look, enough is enough. This is totally unacceptable. I look at this as genital mutilation. That's not acceptable in a Western regime like this. That doesn't fly at all. But nobody's hearing that perspective. Even the men that might feel something's up with this, they don't really speak from a position of vulnerability or that this has harmed them. They say, oh, I'm looking to help the children and things like that. Even maybe if they feel that way, even if they feel harmed, we have such a hesitation to make this a component of our identity. I come out up front and say, like, I identify as being genitally mutilated. That's like a component of my identity. That's how much it's impacted me. That's the truth. The reason I say that is because it's the truth. That's the honest truth. So we see these days how tons of people are identifying, and there's freedom to do that. That is legitimately how I would identify at this point in time. I certainly think I can evolve from that. But that's where I stand right now. That's a powerful, potent statement when you say that to someone. I identify as genitally mutilated. That's something that I want. I'm not saying maybe that's the right direction to go with this, or that's the way to pitch this, but certainly that we need to be able to communicate that this has consumed people. This has caused mental disorders in people. This is causing people's intense suffering. That's not known. That's not known at the higher levels of power at all right now. So as much as I don't really want to say this, we have a responsibility here as the men that have been impacted. We actually have to start doing this. And this is really a call to action for the other men that have been impacted by this. We just cannot be in the shadows anymore. And you touched on something important, Jordan, which is leveraging your internal audience, right? We're always trying to convince other people. We have this huge audience internally of people who already agree with us, who already feel the same way, who are ready to do something. Those are the people that we need to start galvanizing not convincing everybody on the block that this is the wrong thing. We certainly, that's a component of it, but we already have the audience that we need to actually get shit done here. And it's just not being leveraged properly. That's my take on the situation.
Definitely. Hi, Mahler Cougar. See you just joined.
Let's see.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I'm trying to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Hey,
How's it
Yo.
going?
I, this, I know this is probably really weird for me to be talking about this, as a transgendered person, and because you're talking about something, questions that people, who don't know me would just ask me. It's just one of those common questions is just like, have you had the surgery and stuff like that. But as far as speaking with all of you, it's just like, no, I haven't. But when I was in California, I was sort of red pilled to the knowledge about, circumcision from a friend of mine who, he was pretty adamant towards it. And then I started doing research, and that's when things started to really, really hit me. And, it really just caused an avalanche of things of like self-loathing in terms of like looking at myself anytime I would have to get naked and just being in the tub and see the circumcision scar and everything like that. And it's just kind of, I've never really been one that's been like a really angry person, but it's just like, it's so upsetting, and I don't know how to redirect this anger. I can't be angry at my parents because my parents were lied to, but what I get angry at is that it's just my whole sexual future was basically, it came down to a decision that probably took a few seconds. When I came out of the hospital, and it's just like 8 days later, it's just like, oh, do you want to have your son circumcised? And because my parents probably didn't know anything better, they probably just said, oh, just sign here and here. And I had a birthday recently on March 8th, and my parents sometimes they'll send me these little reminders, because they still don't agree with my transition and stuff. But my mom sent my birth certificate, and she sent me a thing that said happy birthday, and it basically had 6 pounds 9 ounces and stuff like that. And it's like, we were so proud of your. And as a Christian person, one of the things that really kind of like upset me is just like, what are some of the things that a parent desires when having a child? And it's just like that your child will be healthy, that your child would be, physically, okay. And my parents got that with me, but for some reason it wasn't enough. That basically, they agreed to let me be mutilated. And I actually do say that. And I've been looking at some of the the other organizations. Bloodstained Men were actually out here in Kansas City, and I missed their protest, in front of actually a hospital, or just like and I really wish I could have known about it at the time. And I know that I think it was like there's something that you said, Carter, about letting people know. And I did see my aunt that lives in Junction City, Kansas. She knows. None of my family know about this, except, not my my transitioning, but just my issues with circumcision and stuff. She knows about it, and I asked her to watch a video. I do need to speak to her and see if she actually did watch it. Have you seen the Eric Klopper video at Harvard?
Absolutely.
That was something that I sent to her, and I'm hoping she had a chance to see it. And one of the things that, well, there's actually kind of two things, and it's just, one of them is angry men, people who get angry at people who are upset at being mutilated. And I don't understand, where is the empathy? Where's the compassion? It's just like, oh, get over it. You know, you get a lot of those comments. It's just like, oh, it's just a piece of skin. I can last longer in the bed. I can do this. Stop being a baby. Like, just like, I'm fine with it. And it's just from being in this underground and knowing so many people who are upset about this. It's something I can't be quiet about this anymore. And what do you think about, you know, when I saw the Harvard lecture, what would happen if a lot of men who are upset about, you know, being mutilated, what if they were all, I know we can't do it because of COVID, but what if everyone had like a conference, if there was no COVID? Imagine a whole bunch of like men who have this feeling about the, you know, just the whole mutilation, were able to sit in a conference with a panel of doctors. I mean, what would you feel about that? You know, just to voice opinions and just do it in a way that, you know, it's just like civil, you know, and be able to speak to a panel of doctors. You know, can that happen?
I think there's no reason it couldn't. I think Intactivists have been extremely aggressive toward doctors. At protests I've attended, at protests I've watched, at everything I've seen, you know, there's not even a slight attempt by most Intactivists to have a civil conversation with doctors. It's it's like, fuck you, you're Satan. You need to go to hell. It's screaming. It's yeah, it's not universal, but like most of it is to some degree or another pretty angry and not trying to build a bridge and have something sort of constructive like that. You know, when I've reached out to doctors and am very civil and kind of, you know, try to let them know how I feel and am as gentle as possible, I've actually gotten really good responses, even from the people at the American Academy of Pediatrics conference who were leading the session on, you know, how to respond to Intactivists. They actually, you know, responded to my video and mentioned me in the conference and were like, oh, this guy actually was very honest and you know, seemed like he was sincere. So it's like, I think there's just not enough people actually trying to do that, is basically what I'm trying to say. I think something like that would be really interesting. Because there are a lot of doctors who agree with us, a decent percent, and I think trying to build more bridges like that is a very good idea. I actually wanted to do something like that myself, where I hosted an educational sort of thing for doctors on on how circumcision can be traumatic. And my mom happens to be a doctor, and I wanted to co-host that with her, and haven't quite figured that out yet. But I think there's a potential there. You know, it's really it's the work that you have to put in to make something like that happen, which is the biggest challenge. But I like the thinking behind it. You know, it's certainly a good example of a civil sort of discourse that we've been talking about, or a very not so aggressive and dark and way of doing this that would burn bridges rather than create bridges. So I appreciate you sharing your story as well.
Well, thank you. I had an experience with a therapist that I had been seeing recently, and last year, and I probably won't see her again. She actually was pregnant at the time that I was having a counseling session with her, and it was about that time that I had told her about the circumcision issues that I've had, and just you know, just the trauma that it's caused. And and I asked her, I said, "Are you going to do that if you find out if you have a son?" And she told me, honestly, I really never talked about that with my husband. That's something we've never talked about. And I'm just like, this is an important conversation. I felt like I was actually educating my therapist. I said, this is something that maybe you should really, really talk with him. And it's just like, because you see how it's affecting me. And then I found out later she did have a boy and she did have him circumcised. And that and just you see how I'm feeling now. It's just like I could have saved somebody. I don't know if I could have, but I tried. I don't want to see her again. I'm actually seeing another therapist as of a couple of months ago, and I just think I I tried. Maybe I could have done more. I don't know. But she should have known just how emotional I got. The conversations that we've had about how this had affected me, and it's something that I really felt she might have taken to heart and spoken to her husband about. But I don't know if it's because, this is the whole kind of Christian thing. But there's been, it's one of the things that Jordan, that you had talked about. It's just like there's so many different umbrellas and different religions and different things that people talk about, but the trauma is still real. And I've actually found places in the Bible in which basically Paul spoke against circumcision, and that's just like a whole nother subject about that. It's just all I can say is like the trauma is real, and I tried, and I feel really bad that I wasn't able to stop her from circumcising her son.
It's a hard thing. I'm not always able to myself either with everyone in certain situations. So
Well, I have a thing to say right here because it's related. First of all, I would like to thank Mother Kruger about being so vulnerable and open to people and
Hmm.
sharing opinions with everyone. Actually, Ronald Goldman had this shared this in his book about parents being informed about circumcision before when they have boys as children, and they were informed about the pros and cons from a rather objective perspective, and they ended up, even though learning about the harms about the circumcision. I mean, it wasn't like that extreme as we are discussing right now, but they were told that it was unnecessary for at least, and they ended up circumcising their boys as well. So I think it's bigger than what you individually could have accomplished. I know by heart that you tried your best, but I think it was already bigger than what you could have done. I think it has happened to most of us that we try to inform people, but there's a point that, of course, like we have seen all the posts online about like it's my child, my choice. It's none of your business kind of approach. So there's just so much we can do about this. So I think you have done your best, and there's nothing at all to blame yourself about. That's my humble opinion.
Thanks.
yeah, it's a hard business to be in. It's important to not be discouraged by it, and yeah, I mean, do your best, and if you can, certainly learn from it, or what maybe you would do different. But it's like that's all you can do is to do your best. So it's hard too. I mean, with your therapist, especially. I just actually wrote the final chapter in my book, which is a chapter for therapists who are working with men traumatized by circumcision and and women. I use men in the book mostly because I think it's mostly men, but certainly it applies equally to transgender people who are victims of it. But anyways, it's, you know, I think it's not something almost any therapists are used to dealing with, and so I am very explicit that the most important thing is actually to be an advocate against circumcision. If you're not an advocate against circumcision and don't do your best to obviously protect your own child, but also even your relatives and your friends' children from circumcision, that's like the step number one in being a therapist on this issue, is to be an advocate. Because it's almost impossible, you know, to be a victim of this and then to confront your therapist and know that there's someone who doesn't actually oppose what was done to you. You know, it just feels completely unsafe being with someone who doesn't understand or respect that. So, yeah, I've also, you know, faced my own therapist who didn't get it, and I didn't talk to him after that either. I think it's
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate, but I hope as awareness increases that therapists can also learn more about this. So. I'm probably going to end this call pretty soon. I'm going to be back again next week on Wednesday again at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So I'm doing this every week now. Yeah, so one thing I want to say before I end is if anyone here is interested in being a host of this show, we can have more than one show every week. In fact, I want to have a show every day eventually and kind of build up to that. But if anyone wants to host once a week or once every other week or once a month even, I would invite you to just let me know, and I would love to have help doing this so that we can, you know, keep on elevating this conversation.
Absolutely. Can I say one thing before you go to kind of lighten the mood?
Yeah.
There's been it's just something that I kind of felt like was in the back of my mind. I know this is probably just like something that probably won't happen, but when the lottery actually hit like $1 billion, I bought one ticket and I told myself, if I ever won this, a lot of money would be going to 4Gen.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I think there's at least 10,000 people who would say the exact same thing. I don't know if they're all entering the lottery. One of them's got to be a millionaire.
Yeah, someone's got to be a millionaire out there.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah. I always say if everyone who was restoring would donate $1 per year to Foragen, then we would be fully funded. It's like, it's kind of insane, right? Because people who are restoring usually spend, I don't know, an average of a couple $100 on restoration devices. So if they spent like literally 1% of what they're spending on restoration on regeneration, then we'd actually have already achieved it like a long time ago. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the lottery. It could actually be $1, literally $1 a year. Just a heads up, everyone. Like,
Yeah. I mean, donation to the Bloodstained Men last month. You know, for keeping a sign up
Hmm.
that brought awareness to circumcision. I kind of felt like it was a good thing to do. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's super cool. Be good to get multiple of those up. I think your whole baby has done signs too.
Oh, in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, would anyone else like to share anything before we end for the day?
I think I would like to thank you for giving this opportunity to anyone who could join, because if I made it here, anyone could do it, apparently. And I didn't see this one coming, but I'm very honored, to be honest, because I have been loyally following everything you guys have been doing all along. And in Europe, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to find people to discuss about this, since everyone has their skins. So I feel honored to be a part of this, and I would like to thank you to give everyone the chance to be heard on this channel.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thanks.
really appreciated you joining.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to end this then for the week. As I said, if you want to reach out and for any reason, but especially if you want to host, would definitely be interested in bringing more hosts on. Yeah. Hold on one sec. Gotta reset my. I'm still getting used to Restream here. It's a new platform. But yeah, so feel free to reach out to me. And what's that?
Yeah, I'm gonna head out now. It was nice meeting you though, Murat and Mahler. So is that how you pronounce your name, or is that just like an alias that you use?
Oh, it's my real name is Kia.
Cool. Oh, okay.
But
Gotcha.
Mahler is my favorite composer, Gustav Mahler.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Never heard of him. I'll check it out.
It's an Austro-German composer, Jewish
Gotcha.
German composer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. Well, once again, nice meeting you guys. Jordan, as always. Pleasure.
Nice to drink, Carter.
Pleasure to meet everybody.
Later. Yeah.
Hope to see you again.
Have a good night. Okay.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.